In several of these films, we've been talking about sentence patterns. We've been saying things like, if you want to teach a certain sentence pattern. In preparing a syllabus or a scheme of work, this idea is very important. A sentence pattern, let me remind you, is a typical arrangement of words in a sentence. For example, one English sentence pattern has the verb is in the middle. First an article and a noun, say, a horse. Then the verb is, and then two more words, an article and another noun, say, an animal. A horse is an animal. Of course, you could put hundreds of other words instead of horse and animal, but the sentence pattern would stay the same.
I see. The general shape of the sentence stays the same, but the particular elements in it change.
That's right. Let's have a look at another pattern. A typical one begins with the words, there is a, followed by a noun, and then a phrase. There is a pencil in my hand. There is a glass on that table.
Isn't a sentence pattern the same as a substitution table?
No, but a substitution table must of course be based on a particular sentence pattern. A substitution table is something a wise teacher uses to remind him of possibilities. The possibilities of different sorts of nouns or verbs being used in the pattern he's teaching.
Let me try using one and see how it works.
All right, try using a table based on the pattern we were talking about. There is a something in, on, or at the something.
Right, now class, you see this substitution table? Now I want each of you to make a sentence from it. Ahmed.
There is a car in the road.
Yes?
There is a horse in my field.
Yes?
There is a radio on that shelf.
Yes?
There is a man at the... There's a house at the corner.
Yes? You needn't take all the words from the same line, Dorcas. Try taking them from different lines.
There is a man on that shelf.
That won't do, will it?
So.
There is a man in my field.
That's a good one. Ahmed.
There's a horse at the door. There is a car up the corner.
Yes? Patrick.
There's a horse in my pocket.
Yes, well, you have to be careful what goes into these tables. The grammar was perfect, but the meaning was sometimes rather strange.
It's all very well for you to laugh, but what can I do?
There's a very obvious answer to that. Don't put the substitution table up on the blackboard. Of course the pupils will play tricks with it. Besides, we don't want them just reading things off a table. We want them talking about something real.
Well, in that case, what's the use of the substitution table?
It's useful to you yourself. Have it in front of you on the desk to give you ideas, to help you stick to the same sentence pattern and yet provide a variety of subjects.
Let me have another try, on the lines you suggest. That is the table.
That is the table.
Again. That is the table.
That is the table.
Good. There is a basket on that table. There is a hammer on that table. There is a glass on that table. There is a bottle on that table. There is a basket on that table.
There is a basket on that table.
There is a hammer on that table.
There is a hammer on that table.
There is a glass on that table.
There is a glass on that table.
There is a bottle on that table.
There is a
Bottle on that table.
Hammer.
There is a hammer on that table.
Glass.
There is a glass on that table.
What happened? You were doing extremely well. Did you get stuck?
Yes. I couldn't think where to go next. I had them repeating quite nicely. Of course, that couldn't go on forever.
No, well, never mind. It's just a question of having things well planned in advance. Miss Malem, you're an experienced hand at this game. What would you do next?
Well, I think you might change the places a bit. For example, not always say on that table, but on the shelf or in my pocket, on the floor or behind the door and so on.
Oh, yes. And that would make more possible variations of things, too.
Yes, then you ought soon to get on to conversation.
That sounds more like it. Conversation. How? Do you mean question and answer?
No, you can have one group saying, I want something. For example, I want a handkerchief. And the other group using the new pattern to say where it is. For example, there is a handkerchief in that drawer.
A hammer.
I need a hammer. There is a hammer on that table.
A glass of water.
I need a glass of water. There is a glass of water on that table.
Sheet of paper.
I need a sheet of paper. There is a sheet of paper on that table. I need a rubber. There is a rubber on that book.
Yes, I see the point. The learners were doing all the talking, and Miss Malem just set the ball rolling. It looked very easy.
Yes, it looks easy.
But it's not so easy then.
Only if you prepare thoroughly. You know what patterns you're going to introduce or practice, and you've made your substitution table to guide you.
My substitution table.
Yes, like this one Miss Malem was using. This table will give us sentences like, there is a hammer on that table, or there is a shilling in that purse. The next step is to make the children repeat after you. Then to make them say it on their own by merely giving them a guide word. And finally, you reach the stage where some of the children can speak one half of a conversation and the rest speak the other half using the new pattern. That's what we just saw happening.
What's the next step?
Well, so far the children have only learnt to say positive sentences. The next step should be to say negative ones.
I see. You mean instead of saying there is a, they say there isn't a.
Exactly. And do you see how you would go about it?
I would explain that the negative of the same pattern is formed by putting isn't instead of is, and then I'd give them...
No, Mr. Hughes, it isn't any use giving the children an explanation like that. They don't need an explanation, they just need plenty of practice. That's what you have to give them.
All right, I'll try. Along the same lines as before. Glass. There is a glass on the table. Cup. There isn't a cup on the table. Basket. There is a basket on the table. Bag. There isn't a bag on the table.
Beat time. Show them how to do the rhythm.
There isn't a lamp on the table.
There isn't a lamp on the table.
Good. Try again. Stick.
There isn't a stick on the table.
Basket.
There is a basket on the table.
Basket.
There isn't a basket on the table.
Yes, that's the way it should go. But you should give them more practice with the negative there isn't a before going on to a mixed drill, sometimes positive and sometimes negative.
It's all rather mechanical so far. Do we go on to yet another mechanical drilling of, say, the question form, or can we do some conversation using what the pupils have learnt so far?
If you're clever about it, you can give them a little conversation. It might begin in chorus and afterwards be done by individuals. Look at these patterns. There is a basket on that table. There isn't a basket. on that table. You could add a sort of contradiction, like, yes, there is, no, there isn't.
There's a ring on your finger. No, there isn't. There's a comb in your hair.
No, there isn't.
There isn't a handkerchief in your sleeve.
Yes, there is.
That sort of exchange can easily be arranged with the whole class, and after a while the teacher need take no part. The pupils do the whole thing. Here we see a class divided into two sections, with two pupils leading the chorus work.
I want a ruler. There is a ruler on the table. No, there isn't. I want a milk jug. There is a milk jug on the shelf. No, there isn't.
You'll notice how little the teacher has to speak in these practices. That is, after the pupils have had plenty of opportunity to imitate her.
I need more guidance about these sentence patterns. So far with this one, we have dealt only with affirmative and negative.
There is a basket on that table. There isn't a basket on the table. Yes, that's only the beginning. We have to do the question forms too. Change there is to is there. And just as before, within this form of the pattern, you can replace the elements in hundreds of ways. That's why we call this a substitution table. Just look at some of the examples we can get from this table. Is there a sharp knife on that table? Is there a bottle under the sink? Is there a pencil in the pocket? And so on.
Well, we've had positive, negative, and question forms. Is that everything?
Good heavens, no. Our basic sentence pattern, has dozens of other forms that you can use, and each of these can be set out as a substitution table. Isn't there a basket on that table? There's a basket on that table, isn't there? There isn't a basket on that table, is there? And then, what about the past tense? There was a basket on that table. Or the future. There will be a car at the station. And so far, everything's been in the singular. We can go through all this in the plural. There are some girls at the door. Are there any flowers in the garden? There weren't any books on my desk.
And you really want me to give separate drills on all these various forms of the sentence pattern? The pupils would murder me.
So they might if you did it all at once, but you take it easy. 20 minutes or so on one pattern, and then switch to something quite different. Singing or reading, or making models and discussing them.
You don't think I ought to show the pupils these sentence patterns?
No, use them yourself to guide you. Try giving some drills based on this pattern.
Chalk.
Is there any chalk on the table? There is some ink, but there isn't any chalk.
Wood.
Is there any wood on the table? There is some paper, but there isn't any wood.
Bread.
Is there any bread on the table? There is some cake, but there isn't any bread.
Now Mr. Hughes is really making some progress in the technique of spoken drills. He's beginning to see for himself that all the common sentence patterns can be learnt and practiced in this way. And you, well, perhaps you're tied to a textbook which doesn't help you. Perhaps your textbook doesn't analyze the language and make it clear when a new pattern is being introduced. Well, never mind. Read ahead in the textbook. And whenever you come to something that will be new to your class, especially a new kind of sentence, make a special note of it. Perhaps make a substitution table to guide you. And whatever happens, see that your class gets some practice in the new pattern before they meet it in the book.